Hey guys, welcome to Spear America San Diego. I'm Ryan Moore, and today we're going to give you a quick run through of your new spear gun. We're going to use this Pathos carbon gun, but a lot of the things we're going to talk about are going to be relevant to most spear guns. So this should be a good educational resource for you guys to kind of learn the basics, the ins and outs of utilizing this spear gun. So let's get right into it. First, a couple safety concerns. First of all, the spear tip itself, very sharp. You always want to be really careful about where this is, whether you're carrying the gun or whether you're storing the gun. You don't want this to be poking someone behind you while you're walking with it, or stored somewhere where somebody could accidentally walk by and kick this. And also a really good idea to keep a tip protector on it at all times. This one comes with this little rubber, but you could use a cut-off piece of rubber, like spear gun rubber, or we sell tip protectors as well. Important thing to have. The next consideration is to never load your spear gun out of the water. Spear guns are meant to be shot in the water, where water is, a lot denser than air. If you shoot a spear gun out of water, a lot of bad things can happen. There's a bunch of videos on YouTube showing people having all kinds of mishaps. So never out of the water, always in the water. The other thing to consider is where you're loading your spear gun. You want to make sure you're in a safe place. And what I mean by that is you want to be, if you're shore diving out past the surf zone, you don't want to get thrown over the falls while you're trying to load this. Or if you're on a boat, you want to make sure you've kicked away from the boat and the boat's not going to like drift down on you while you're going through the spear gun loading process. Before you load your spear gun, you always want to check that the shaft is firmly engaged in the mechanism. And how you do that is you grab the barrel of the gun with one hand and the spear itself with the other, and you'll give it a couple clicks back and forth. You should hear that click and you shouldn't feel anything. Your spear shouldn't pop out of the mechanism. It should be very obvious that it's firmly engaged like this one is. When you're going to load the spear gun, we recommend doing what we call chest loading, as opposed to a lot of people like to hip load. Chest loading is a much more stable, strong position for you to load your spear gun in. And you basically we'll put the butt of the gun in your sternum. That's why most spearfishing wetsuits have that chest loading pad. And then you will use your arms to pull the bands back. There's a little bit of technique to get the gun in this position, and I'm going to show you guys that right now. You will want to grab the first band, the closest band to you, the one that hangs down lowest. Like in this case, you can see obviously it's this one, with your palm facing upwards. And with the other hand, you'll want to put it on the butt of the spear, like I have it here. Now you'll push the butt of the spear gun so it's even with your sternum and rotate your body around to square up with the gun. This will put the gun in a great position where you can grab the bands with both hands and pull the wishbone all the way back to the first shark fin. On this gun, you can see there's two different shark fins at the back of the gun. First band will go to the first one. Second band will go further back onto the second one. If you accidentally pull the first band all the way back to the second one, you'll notice that you can now no longer put a band on the one in front of it because it's covered by the rubber. It will be very obvious when you do it. You can load two bands onto one shark fin, but it's preferable to put one on one and one on the other. If you're going to be hunting fish in really close quarters or in really shallow water, you might want to only load one of your spear gun's bands. And when you do this, I recommend trapping the unloaded band under the loaded band. So to do that, rather than grab the lower band first, you'll grab the upper band first, and when you pull it back, it'll look something like this, where you have this guy trapping the other band. So that way it's not floating up like it would be if you just loaded one. You'd have this guy floating kind of in the way of where you're lining up and looking. Just trap that guy. It makes it a little bit more streamlined when you're hunting. The next thing to talk about will be how the spear gun shoots. Spear guns don't have any sights. It's all point and shoot. And what we recommend is imagining that there's an imaginary line protruding from the spear through the full range of the gun. All spear guns are going to shoot different distances depending on the band setup and the length of the gun. So we recommend taking a couple practice shots. The best way to do this around here is to find like a piece of kelp out in the sand somewhere, or if you're on a boat, put a soda can in the water and it gives you a nice slow moving target. You can take some practice shots. When you're shooting, you want to make sure that your arm's fully extended, and some people even like to put a second hand behind the gun. They don't have a lot of recoil, but it's enough that if you had the gun close to your face and pulled the trigger, it could potentially hit you in the mouth. Easily avoidable if you just extend your arm. When you pull the trigger, two things are going to happen. One, the mechanism is going to release the shaft, and two, the line release is going to release your shooting line when the shaft leaves the gun. So that's going to look like this. Shaft's going to fly out of the gun, go into your giant, delicious fish. And this gun, like most Euro guns, comes with what we call a flopper shaft. So this is a really basic setup. The tip is perfectly suitable for shooting into rocks. If you dull this thing up by hitting rocks with it, you can put it on a grinder or use a file to clean this up and resharpen it, or bring it into Spear America San Diego, and we sharpen spears for people every day. You'll notice it also has this flopper here, this barb that opens up after it passes through the fish. This is a really simple, effective system. So this entire thing passes through the fish. The barb should open up and then pin itself in place if it's tuned properly. Now the fish is trapped on your spear. After you pull the fish in, you'll use your dive knife to brain the fish to both preserve the meat quality and to put the fish out of its misery. And then it'll be time to pull the fish off the spear. To do this, you just close the flopper. Imagine my hand's the fish. You'll slide the flopper back into the fish and then slowly twist the shaft as you pull it back out of the fish. If the flopper does open up inside the fish somewhere, you can just easily push it back forward. The flopper will close and you can continue twisting and pulling the shaft back out. If you're having trouble with this, there's another way to get the fish off the spear. If you slide the fish all the way down the spear and then onto your shooting line, you should have a connection point like this gun has on the muzzle bungee, where there's a clip that'll either come to the muzzle bungee, or if you have a reel set up, there should be a clip on your reel line. If you open this up and disconnect the monofilament, you can now slide the fish all the way off the end of the mono and then reconnect your shaft. Just be sure that you don't drop your shaft when you're doing this, because it'll sink very quickly. After your catch is secured, it's time to reload your spear gun. And this is something that a lot of new divers struggle with in the beginning, but it's actually very simple, and we're going to show you guys how to do that right now. The spear has to enter the gun exactly as it left the gun. So what I mean by that is both bands have to be on top of the track in this position. You don't want to have one flopped over underneath or both of them flopped over to the other side of the gun. When you put the shaft back in, the line will be out of position. You want to make sure both bands are on top of the track, and then your spear will enter underneath of the bands like so. It'll go back on top of the track of the spear gun and slide back down into the mechanism. You always want to make sure that the shaft is firmly engaged in this mechanism before you load the spear gun again. And the best way to do that is hold the barrel of the gun with one hand, grab the spear with the other, give it a couple clicks. You should hear that it's firmly and securely in there. Now it's time to wrap your muzzle. Now it's time to wrap your muzzle. This spear gun is an open track spear gun, so it has a small pin here on one side. All open track Euro guns will have some sort of line wrapping mechanism very similar to this, whether it's a plate or a pin or a plastic extrusion. The monofilament or whatever shooting line you have will wrap underneath of that pin. It will wrap across the spear, and then it will lay inside of some kind of a track. Like this gun has this nice track right up here where the monofilament can lay. That allows the spear to be held in place on the muzzle of the gun. That way the spear can't fall off the track. After your muzzle is wrapped, it's time to bring the line down to the line release. So in this case, this gun has this nice stainless steel line release here, and this gun has a muzzle bungee. The muzzle bungee allows you to pull some slack out of the line, so you can easily get it around the line release like this. If you have a reel, you can just release a little bit of line off the reel so you have some slack. Put the line around the line release and then tighten the reel back up to pull tension back into the shooting line. Once your line's back on your gun, it's time to reload and go get another fish. Thanks for watching, you guys. Come check us out at Spear America San Diego or visit us online at freediveoutfitters.com.